Dear patrons, howdy. Given what has taken place all over the world for roughly the past 14 months, I feel that one area in particular has not received the recognition it deserves. Mental health is a broad term, no doubt, but it encompasses perhaps the most important element of human beings today. From how we deal with grief, anxiety, depression, or just emotional volatility in general, there really isn't any go to playbook when it comes to dealing with mental issues. Anyone who has ever met me in person probably knows that a guy like me is not going to do well in an environment where you can't be physically present and social. Only the Lord knows what COVID has done to my stress levels and the simple fact that I have only myself to figure things out. The good news is there is a much better way of improving your health and well being. It starts with having healthy habits, it starts with having professional direction. Our next company, Newtopia, ticker NEWU on the TSX Venture, is focused on this mission and has a novel approach with how to deal with disease prevention using both traditional and digital methods. The company's platform leverages genetic, social, and behavioral insights to create individualized prevention programs and is focused on the insured healthcare market and Fortune 500 clientele. Newtopia recently celebrated its 1 year anniversary of being public earlier this month and has been recognized as one of the dark horses in the LD micro arsenal. It is now my privilege and pleasure to welcome Mr. Jeff Ruby, the founder and CEO, and Mr. Anthony Lamb, the CFO. Gents, thank you again for your presence and energy. The floor is now yours.
Chris, thanks very much for the generous introduction. I couldn't agree more with the summary here, and it's fantastic to be Zooming with LD and to come and present this audience that we've met before an update on what's been some tremendous progress at Newtopia. Just to dig in here, Newtopia is a tech-enabled habit change provider that's helping health insurers prevent disease and save costs of healthcare. By bringing together the best of human and the best of digital, our platform really enables progressive habit change around nutrition, exercise, and mental well-being. And while that may not sound so revolutionary at first, it really represents a paradigm shift away from the sick care system, which is focused more on monetizing illness than it is on keeping healthy people healthy. By working with some of the most innovative employer health insurers in the world, including CVS Health, JP Morgan Chase, and Accenture, to name a few, our focus is on the 80% of the insured population who are at risk of developing both chronic disease and spiraling healthcare costs. And as a provider of whole person care, we've proven the ability to reduce both physical health risks and mental and emotional health risks with a proven performance-based business model that has been proven out to be self-funding and profitable to the insurer within the first year of deployment. But most importantly of all, this method of ours creates outcomes that grow over time. So both the participants, the health insurers, and Newtopia win. So stepping back, how did a JD MBA with no healthcare background like myself find myself here? Unfortunately, I lost my dad to cancer at a young age. And through his experience, I came to this realization that what we call healthcare has very little to do with keeping healthy people healthy. And again, has almost everything to do with monetizing illness. We've got wonderful physicians, healthcare practitioners, hospital systems that do amazing things around diagnosing, prescribing, and treating illness. But they don't do very wonderful things when it comes to offering primary lifestyle prevention or by really helping individuals incrementally change their habits. And by failing to do so, it leaves health insurers, the likes of employers, private insurers, and governments intervening too late in what is an entirely unsustainable system. And I felt really compelled to do something about that. It's led me on this journey toward this preventative habit change system called Newtopia. Just to lay up the US sick care to the tune of about $3.8 trillion a year is not value-based. And it's largely paid for by three different kinds of insurers. You've got large insurers that self-insure that cover about 140 million people. You've got private health insurers, the likes of Blue Cross, Blue Shield, United, Cigna, Aetna, the Buca plans, that cover the small employer and individual market, cover about 100 million people. And then the government through Medicare, Medicaid, and the VA cover another 100 million collectively. US healthcare costs have been rising for decades, trending now to about 18%, and believe that COVID is going to have a dramatic impact on these costs. The group that has the greatest incentive and the greatest pain to innovate are those self-insured employers, as they're offering really the only health insurance for about 50% of the adult market today. And the way that they innovate is through novel plan design and health benefits that are critical for that 50% of the market to both attract talent, to retain talent, and to lower their costs. Now, the way that we help is by really focusing our platform on reducing key metabolic risk factors, including waist circumference or BMI, blood glucose or A1C, elevated blood pressure, triglycerides, or cholesterol. As these risks go out of range, so too does the chance of developing chronic disease like obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and stroke, which are connected to a whole host of other ailments, both physical and mental, that are costly and oftentimes life-threatening. But where the pain shows up for those health insurers is that as those risks go out of range, so too does the cost, where today the average healthy employee or member should be costing about $3,400 per year in paid medical insurance costs. The challenge is that 80% of the population has at least one of those 5 risks out of range, which creates this 40 to 60% increase in cost. Now, this at-risk group in sort of the yellow-orange, it's pretty scary because within a year, a $5,400 at-risk individual can spike by 3 times and become $15,000 a year if that individual develops type 2 diabetes, or could spike by 4 times and become $20,000 a year if that individual develops cardiovascular disease. Now, that's a pretty terrifying unmitigated liability for a health insurer, but it only represents the costs of physical health issues. We know that as the breakdown in human health takes place, there are also the mental and emotional health issues that rise above it. Now it's this red zone here on the far right. This is where sick care lives. This is where most of our providers, and most of our hospital systems, even telemedicine and telemental health is focused on condition management. And we think that that focus on the 20% is wrongly placed, and that there's an opportunity to actually look at the 80% and through habit change, mitigate risk and cost in a far better way. And what we've been able to prove is that we can take someone from early red and orange back down to green inside of a year and do it profitably for the health insurer. But most importantly, we're delivering outcomes that grow over time. So the individual, the health insurer, and Newtopia wins. And the focus on how we do that is really through this one-size-fits-one habit change approach, which differs considerably from a one-size-fits-all learning and education approach that most everyone else is offering. When you look at a shift from what is sick care to prevention in North America for that 80% of the population, it represents a massive opportunity for Newtopia, north of $500 billion. So this is a huge target and a huge paradigm shift that we're going after. The impact of COVID-19 has really been a lightning strike, of course, for all of us, but also for health insurers. On the challenge side, it certainly has created some disruptions in the form of standard operating procedures at a lot of the self-insured employers, both in the way that they risk identify employees and some of the timing that they've rolled out programs like us. But it's also presented a tremendous opportunity as health insurers have been confronted with 3 major facts. The first, the world is awake to the need to prevent disease like never before. The second, there's incontrovertible evidence linking risks like obesity and pre-chronic disease with COVID-19 as a huge cost accelerant, second only to age, driving up the cost for health insurers. And the third, which has not been as well reported, but is the likelihood of a tsunami of chronic disease that follows COVID-19 as a result of the social isolation, the poor eating, the inactivity, and the mental stress that many of us are still going through as a result of this pandemic, all of which is creating greater pressure on the health insurers to mitigate that risk and to focus on their at-risk population like they've never done before. So how does this work? What Newtopia does is we leverage risk identification tools that 95% plus of the self-insured employers are using today, things like biometric testing, or health risk assessments, or claims data analysis, or even a CDC-based risk screener. Now, keep in mind, the employees who are taking these tests are doing so voluntarily through their benefits. And it's that way that we're getting access to their information and permission to reach out to them. And what we're trying to do is use timing in our favor, as these individuals here are learning that they've got a greater chance of having a heart attack or a stroke or developing type 2 diabetes. They're going to be concerned. And that's when we want to meet them with the opportunity to participate. And today we're seeing anywhere between 25% up to 60%, if the incentives are right, of those at-risk individuals convert into Newtopia participants. So meet Mary. Mary here is one of those at-risk employees who's put up her hand and says, I want to do something about it and join the Newtopia platform. As she does, she becomes a participant, and our habit change methodology kicks in immediately. We want to start by learning about Mary holistically. We want to learn about her socially, behaviorally, and genetically. And we've been pioneering an area we call genetic engagement, which is really trying to help Mary understand herself better so we can arm her with a greater sense of control and motivation about what to do about it. We take that understanding and begin to design meaningful virtual experiences designed to engage her and change her habits. It starts with human, where we want to match Mary up, Match.com style, to a member of our team called an Inspirator. We then want to make sure that she's got the right habit change plan configured for her across the right nutrition recommendations, exercise recommendations, and mental health recommendations. All of that is expended through really great smart technology and configured for her on her own mobile or web platform. We also use smart devices. So Mary's going to receive a smart scale, an activity tracker, a blood pressure cuff, a continuous glucose monitor, depending on where she's at in the risk spectrum, so there's no self-monitoring. We go further and ensure that there's the right kind of gaming to keep it fun for her and the right kind of social health community to ensure that she's engaged with others going through the same experience. Now, the key to all of this is that it's being designed one size fits one for Mary. And by becoming a student of Mary and really leveraging habit change, we've been able to demonstrate that at the end of 12 months, we can have a positive impact across all 5 metabolic risks and key mental and emotional health risks as well, and do so self-funding and profitable to Mary's employer. But we want to see outcomes that grow over time so that they're improving at 24 and 36 months. And that's how we offer the greatest value both to Mary and to her health insurer employer. The key leverage in the business is our virtual care platform, which is really bringing together the right technology and user experience design, the right behavioral economics and psychology, the right data analytics, AI deep learning, and smart automation to be able to deliver that habit change for Mary at scale to the millions of Marys that are there. And what it's letting us do is optimize a key KPI of Newtopia, which is how many participants can any one of our Inspirators manage at a time. Today, we operate at a 1 to 200 ratio, and we've actually kept that number low artificially because we're really focused on quality and quality outcomes for our early innovation partners. At that 1 to 200 ratio, we're driving 60% margins on our monthly recurring revenue. And we know there's an opportunity that as we focus on continuing to invest in the technology platform and focus on efficiency, we want to move from that 1 to 250 optimally to about 1 to 350, maybe higher, and move from 60 points of margin into mid 70s. And we're investing in that efficiency in that technology today. How do we know it works? Well, before commercializing, we set out to really establish gold standard evidence of the efficacy of this platform from both a risk reduction and cost perspective. We did it through a gold standard randomized control trial that was funded by Aetna and published in the peer-reviewed Journal of Occupational and Environmental Medicine. And what the study demonstrated is at the end of 12 months, Aetna was able to recognize a $1,464 savings in paid medical costs, largely because we were able to improve all 5 key physical risk factors for every participant who joined the platform. And on an average $700 investment made by Aetna per engaged participant per year, we demonstrated a 2x in-year ROI, which is as good as any of the data that's really available for a peer-reviewed study around prevention. But what we're most proud of is actually what we did between months 12 and 24, because as a habit change provider, we're looking for delivering value in outcomes that grow. And that's exactly what we saw. Our 12-month outcomes more than doubled at the end of 24 months. It's significant because the 2x ROI we delivered for Aetna at 12 months turns into more like 4 times at the end of 24 months. It means Mary is improving over time. It's also important, check out that gray line, which really gets there at sort of 16 weeks and then starts dropping from there. That's what everyone else is doing, offering a one-size-fits-all course, as opposed to that one-size-fits-one habit change platform. Now, we've been able to improve upon these outcomes in our book of business and move away from just focusing on physical health to also focusing on mental and emotional health, resilience, and performance as well. We were able to leverage our learnings from our randomized control trial to create a performance-based model that really aligns everyone's interests, both Mary's employer, and Newtopia's. So here's how it works. Keep in mind that Mary's employer is paying for all 3 of these steps. First, as Mary puts up her hand to say, I want to join Newtopia, the first thing that we do is send her a welcome kit with all the tools that she needs to be engaged and successful. We're going to charge Mary's employer $230 for that kit. There's about 25% margin there, largely passed through on purpose. We're really trying to use this step to set Mary up for success. Then, number 2, for every month that Mary is engaged in the experience, both leveraging her Inspirator, leveraging the technology platform, we're going to charge Mary's employer $65 per month on a recurring basis. We're currently generating that 60% margin at the 1 to 200 ratio. And as I mentioned, there's an opportunity to improve that margin profile as we improve our efficiency. And then number 3, if at the end of 12 months, Mary achieves a clinically significant outcome today tied to a 5% body weight reduction, we're going to charge Mary's employer a $200 outcome milestone, effectively a bit of a success fee. We know at that 5% that we will have triggered the $1,464 in paid medical cost savings that we established in our RCT. So this is an opportunity for us to participate in a bit of the gain share. If you take those 3 components and apply 6+ years of pretty consistent churn data, every time Mary joins the platform, we conservatively know that we're going to collect $1,600 in average recurring revenue per participant. Now, I say it's conservative because it was based on the 3-year length of our randomized control trial. We've actually yet to discover the tail of this revenue stream for us. And now we've got over 60 months of engagement data to suggest that it's considerably longer and more than that $1,600. From a commercial perspective, after the randomized control trial, we began commercializing again with those innovator self-insured employers, and now have the following customer and contract base representing a total of 840,000 lives, which conservatively 50% or 420,000 would be at risk and eligible. If you apply an 18% conversion rate across that 420,000 lives, there's the potential for 75,000 potential participants as we grow into these contracts. Take the $1,600 average recurring revenue across the 75,000, and there's the potential for 120 million or so in revenue incremental to what we've already gained by just growing into the contracts that we already have. It's important to note that we phase into these contracts either geographically or divisionally. And today we've had access to 20% of the opportunity to market to that 420,000 conservative lives. And so there's a 5x opportunity where the opportunity to grow our cup by 5 times just by executing into the contract base that we have without having to sell to any additional contracts. We're also really excited about expanding beyond the employer market in the US with our first deal here in Canada with a provincial health insurer. Again, a different health insurer category in Canada. We believe it's going to be the provinces and the public health insurers that are going to be the catalyst of innovation. And so we've partnered with both Medtronic and the province of Newfoundland, which is represented by Eastern Health, to address their 500 or so thousand population, 30% of which has diabetes. We're just getting started in that effort and are excited to make this impact. But we think it's a harbinger of other opportunities to come with the remaining Canadian population as an opportunity to follow along the lead of what's Newfoundland has done. One of the key strategic advantages that we have, and what we believe is a key growth driver, is the data that we're collecting. Now consider, for every Mary that joins the platform, we have access to her entire genomic sample, plus 3+ years of really rich lifestyle and behavioral data. Now it's important to note that that ownership right extends to anonymous de-identified data, which is valuable from a data analytics and an R&D perspective. From a data analytics side, what we're able to do is apply more and more AI to that novel data set so that we can offer Mary valuable insights and nudges over time to keep her engaged and sticky, which goes to helping our core recurring revenue model. But where the real value is that as we scale that data set, we believe there's an opportunity to take that data set and partner with drug discovery and pharma firms on what we hope is going to become a next generation preventive therapeutic platform, effectively marrying Newtopia's proven habit change results against precision medications for lowering blood pressure, blood glucose, triglycerides, et cetera. Now, we've yet to begin that commercialization effort, and we think it represents huge potential upside, not only for Newtopia, but for our investor base. In order to make all this happen, I've put together a world-class leadership team of both Canadian and US leaders who've got the experience and the passion to scale this model. I've also put together industry-leading board of directors and commercial advisory board, so we're surrounded by the talent that we need to make this happen. On the revenue growth side, we've been pretty consistent. Since commercializing in 2016, we've seen nearly 100% year-over-year growth. We definitely saw a little bit of an impact in the COVID cycle with an interruption to standard operating procedures, but we see ourselves returning to growth in the back half of this year, largely on the back of participant growth and a huge pipeline of commercial opportunities for very similar employers and novel insurers that we're working with. From an engagement side, we've seen steady growth in that participant base. This is where our base of recurring revenue comes from. And again, with a 5x opportunity to grow into that conservative 420,000 opportunity, and again, that return to standard operating procedures, as these employers are looking to mitigate that risk, there's a tremendous opportunity for us to build up that recurring revenue base. On the growth driver side, there are really three key growth drivers for Newtopia, which we're pursuing at the same time. The first is by increasing enrollment. As I mentioned, there's an opportunity for us to expand that 20% into the 100% to fill our cup. And there's also the opportunity for us to improve that conversion ratio. I mentioned 18%. It's notable that in the latest work that we've completed with JP Morgan Chase that was sponsored by Haven, we saw a close to 60% conversion rate with the right incentive plan there. So we see great opportunities on the increasing enrollment side to really fill into these blue categories in the contracts that we already have. Number two, there's the opportunity to really improve our product density. Here we've expanded into this whole person care, really focused on preventing, reversing, and slowing the progression of chronic disease while enriching mental and emotional health, resilience, and performance. By doing so, we're looking to attract not just the 50% at risk, but the 80% at risk, growing that base from 420,000 up to the 670,000 who would be at risk in all of our clients. And then finally, there's the opportunity to expand our client base. And so of the self-insured lives of the 140 million there are today, the 840,000 represents 1% penetration. We've really just gotten started, and there are a lot of other innovators in the mass market to go. On the private insurer side, we've yet to tap into, but have efforts underway to get into the fully insured books of the private insurance companies. And then third, in the public and government category, as you've already seen, we've begun that penetration in Canada with our deal with Medtronic and Eastern Health, and through some work that we have published at the end of last year with a study around our MA impact, we've begun to really go headlong into the opportunity to penetrate into the Medicare and Medicare Advantage space in the US for the 65 plus category. If I sum it up, when you look at lifestyle-related chronic disease and really where Chris began, this is a massive and growing addressable market. We're addressing it through an easy, scalable virtual care platform that's got proven and published financial and clinical outcomes with marquee insurer clients that are growing. We're collecting some incredibly valuable genomic and phenotypic data, which serves not only our key business model, but a secondary growth with pharma and drug discovery. Got a highly experienced management team, a recurring revenue model that provides predictability, and I fundamentally believe the future of healthcare is going to be about prevention, not sick care, and Newtopia represents its new front door. Thank you very much.
Jeff, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. For anyone who is tuned in right now, there are two ways that you can submit a question. You can use the chat function in the Zoom app, or you can email me at chris@ldmicro.com. And you might have to wait a few minutes because there's quite a few questions. So Jeff, Anthony, whenever you're ready, let me know and I'll go through them.
Ready when you are, Chris.
Excellent. So the first question is, can you give us a walkthrough of how you identify potential clients and what the process is of reaching out, educating them, and ultimately getting them as customers?
Sure. So just to make sure all the nomenclature is clear, I mean, we're a B2B to E model, right? So from a client's perspective would be the self-insured employers or the fully insured payers. And so what we're really looking for at the top line is we've come to identify, we're looking for the innovators and early adopters. There's a category of those employer insurers that tend to like to go first. Oftentimes, they're not hard to find. They put up their hand as innovators, and they're hugely influenced by the benefit consulting broker community, groups like Aon, Willis Towers Watson, and Mercer. And there's a sort of handful of innovation groups like the Employer Health Innovation Roundtable, the Business Group on Health Innovation Group, that are oftentimes industry focused to try to identify innovation. So we rifle shot against those innovator early adopters. And then within that group, what we're looking for are employers that generally have a culture of well-being in place and a trusting communication environment. And with those key components, and now what we've learned with the right incentive structure in place, that really forms sort of the ideal candidate for us to partner with. And that's really how we're targeting up from a direct sales perspective, those kind of clients. And then from there, within those clients, as I had mentioned in the presentation, we're leveraging tools that they're already using to identify risk amongst their populations. Those could be biometric tests, health risk assessments, claims data analysis, or a CDC-based risk screener. We are grabbing that data set, which has been voluntarily provided from those individuals, to identify the up to 80% at risk. We're using timing to make sure that we're getting at them at that moment of concern, trying to meet it with an opportunity. And we're seeing a flow through or conversion rate of between 25 and now up to 6% if the incentives are right into our platform to become participants.
So this is just me coming in. I'm assuming that these innovators and early adopters, would you say that they're more the younger companies, the ones that are tech centric, not the old establishment, if you will? I mean, where do you think a lot of the interest is coming from in this aspect?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. It's interesting you make that point. If you look at the profile of our clients today, CVS Health, not necessarily new and young, JP Morgan Chase, Accenture, Levi's. I would say it's not so much about new and young tech. In fact, oftentimes it's employers that have a slightly mid to older employee population. Keep in mind that the timing of this at risk oftentimes it follows some human development. We've got to ignore ourselves for a little while to start having these risks go out of range. And so we find that our typical participant, our typical Mary, is someone who's between 30 and 65, 30 and 70. It's generally not a Mary who's just entering the workforce and into their late teens and early 20s. Those folks are still in the invincible stage, oftentimes, generally not seeing those risks go out of range. So I would say oftentimes these organizations who employ these individuals will employ a C-suite who's very keen on health and well-being and recognizing that not only by being the insurer, there's an obligation to take care of this population, but also they'll be employing HR and benefits leaders that generally like to go first and really are on the front line.
So, go ahead. Oh, there was no. So let me tell you, I've done about 40 of these, you guys, and this is the first time I've gotten this question. So I'm kind of excited to ask you, Jeff, can you give us a 15 to 30 second pitch of what you would tell one of these Fortune 500 companies as to why they should use Newtopia?
So the nice part is I typically get a little bit more than that, but I would say, if I were to like really sum this up and I'm right now I'm talking to a benefit leader, I would say you've got a massive problem. and COVID has made it worse. You've
Correct.
got 80% of your population who are racing toward a cliff of cost that you're fully responsible for. Most of your time is being spent focusing on the 20% through condition management, which quite frankly is like taking care of an unhappy client as opposed to getting the opportunity right to get the client experience right from the beginning. We have a proven platform to focus on that 80%, to change their habits around nutrition, exercise, and mental health that will both reduce their risk, reduce your cost, proven and guaranteed in our performance-based model, and most importantly, drive outcomes that grow. So over time, we're going to create both a healthier workforce for you, healthier economics, and you're going to be able to attract and retain your employees against your competitors better than anyone else in the market.
Excellent. Thank you for answering that question. The next one is, monetizing illness has sadly become the norm in the States. How do you guys measure ROI for the people using your platform for both the patient and your customer? Thank you for the question.
That's a really great one, and this is where we had some great fortune to we've got a pretty rich innovation legacy. When we decided to focus here in the U.S., we were able to partner with Aetna, and at the time a group called Aetna Innovations, who identified us as a leading platform who would be able to mitigate that risk amongst their members, but then put us through our paces, a 3-year randomized control trial to prove it out. And it was really through that opportunity that we were able to not only measure the efficacy of those physical, mental, and emotional risk reduction, but because we were working with Aetna, we were able to evaluate the results, not theoretically, but actually with a 90-day run out on insurance claims. And that 1464 number that I provided that's been published in the Journal of Occupational Environmental Medicine is an Aetna figure. And so we were able to demonstrate on an intent to treat basis, which means across anyone who joins the platform, that an employer like Aetna could expect at least a 1464 cost savings across everyone there. And by the way, just to make clear, that came because of improvements around blood pressure, blood glucose, triglycerides, cholesterol, waist circumference, which had an impact across inpatient, outpatient, and emergency room costs. That's what we were measured on. And so that was clinically significant. And then we built our business model of approximately $700 of cost on that model I just described. So we're effectively guaranteeing through our habit change method that 2x in-year ROI that we know grows to closer to 4x for the benefit of the employer who's the health insurer. So that's how we measure ROI. And it's really critical that we're able to do so in year. And so one of the big challenges in this whole prevention space has been the question of, one, is there a return and when does it occur? Because if that return occurs in 3 to 5 years, but if your employee is only there for 1 to 2 years, then you get this question about, well, why should I invest today in someone who I'm no longer going to be insuring down the road? And that's been a big challenge for the well-being industry. What's so significant about these outcomes and this study we published with Aetna is that we were able to demonstrate it in year. And so, unless that employer is churning employees inside of a year, which may suggest they have a bigger problem than what Newtopia can solve, we've got some very compelling economics and on ROI data for both at the individual level and at the population level.
Thank you for that. So there was a couple questions that were focused on cost savings. I think you answered that. How much of your offering is solely telehealth? Do you guys have a division or product offering that is solely in person?
So everything we do is virtual. So this is a virtual care model. It's telehealth. We don't do anything in person per se, but the whole notion of this is that I think by doing it this way, we're able to offer the flexibility and the scalability of our platform across now national employer bases. So we're able to cover the entire country without having to start employing or standing up either physical clinics or individuals in each state. And so it provides us with maximum flexibility, but the way that we engage on this hyper-personalized, leveraging the genetic, the behavioral, the social data, and then the way that we engage with our participants is very much the way we're engaging now, except we did it 10 years before it became popular. It's a very personal form of communication, but it is strictly virtual.
So there's a couple questions on inspirators. Does Newtopia disclose how many inspirators it has in North America?
Yes, Chris, today we have just over 75 inspirators in our team.
Awesome. And how is an inspirator different than just a traditional psychologist or person in the psychiatric field?
Yeah, no, really great question. And I would say, our inspirators are really a lot of our secret sauce here at Newtopia. And we realized that we needed to really identify a new front line of habit change designers and behavior change agents. And those categories don't exist in the traditional healthcare world as much. And so what we look for is really a different, a different front line. Our inspirators have a minimum background of a bachelor's of nutrition, kinesiology, or psychology. But within that subsegment, what we're looking for in behavior testing for are individuals with really high empathy, really high emotional intelligence and emotional EQ, and great emotional interviewing skills. Effectively, we're looking for habit change designers and behavior change agents. We don't want content instructors. We don't want individuals who are going to tell anyone what to do. And so that's what makes this category of an inspirator really unique. We've had the benefit of over a decade of being able to identify, train, and now deliver some industry-leading outcomes with these individuals.
So this is a perfect time for our next question. What do you believe is truly proprietary about Newtopia? Is it the content you guys have created, the platform, or the way you are approaching people's ailments?
I mean, so we have some issued and outstanding IP in issued and outstanding patents that's really bringing together this identification of individuals behaviorally, socially, genetically, and then leveraging that knowledge to create these unique virtual experiences, both the right plan and the right way to deliver it against this personality matched inspirator. Excuse the noise. And so that is, and then delivered across any mobile or web device that is proprietary to Newtopia. I would say it's that focus on one size fits one. That's where I find is lacking. There's a one size fits all mindset generally when it comes to delivering, especially prevention, and this idea of let's create a course or let's create a curriculum and then bring everyone to it. And it's very much the way we've all went to school, right? And the idea is let's try to make people smart after about 16 weeks, and hopefully that wisdom is going to lead to behavior change. Well, if you can think of a course you've taken that not only made you smarter, but changed the course of every activity you do on a daily basis, you're probably going to realize the answer to why that's not the right model. I'd say what's truly proprietary, not only around our IP, but it's this focus on putting the person at the center, taking the time to learn about that individually, behaviorally, socially, genetically, and then leverage that to create an entirely unique experience, one size fits one, where the emphasis is not on making that individual smarter, but it's upon building that individual's confidence and incrementally changing and stacking habits so they become the engine of their own growth. That's what's special, proprietary, and unique about Newtopia, and I'm not aware of too many others who are doing it.
I usually don't have a favorite question, but in this case I do. How has the mindset of both healthcare insurers and Fortune 500 clientele changed from pre-COVID to post-COVID when it comes to dealing with mental illness? Thank you for the question.
I mean, I think there's, look, I think there's been a general awareness for quite some time that there have been huge silos between physical health and mental health. And I think what COVID has done is it's helped to crystallize in the minds of both employers, Fortune 500s, and insurers that there's just one health, and it's whole person health. There is no physical health without mental health. There's no mental health without physical health. And it's coming together. And what we're seeing and what we're on the front line of is really that movement toward unifying, toward managing one health, not differentiating between the two, and doing so through effective habit change to be the real catalyst for improvements across both mental, emotional resilience and performance.
Understood. Do you guys ever disclose a pipeline of potential business or provide any insight on the size of your clientele?
That's
So
a great question. Aside from what Jeff has mentioned in terms of the employee base that we have access to and our level of penetration on it, a couple of slides earlier, we've really just stayed focused on our client base as is. As I sit here today, Jeff and our sales team has been very active on our pipeline, which again has really, we're in the middle of our sales season as we speak, and that pipeline is incredibly rich with very sizable partners, very much like the ones we have today. I'll allow Jeff to add a little more color on that as he's really deep into that as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, again, having the benefit of this rich legacy and innovation partnership with the likes of the partners we have, the opportunity to share data and case studies, we've been able to attract, a fantastic pipeline of other very similar innovator, early adopter employer health insurers. We've also now been building a pipeline of some of the largest and most significant MA plans in the country, and again with some of the Canadian provincial activity. I would say, coming off of what was a very odd year in last year with COVID almost masking the sales season, this is probably the most animated and hectic and exciting sales season we've ever experienced as a commercial company. And so we're awfully excited, and we think we're meeting the market with both a product and a proven outcome set that really is lacking and is in high demand.
Jeff, I'm going to give you a 5-minute break because now I'm going to grill Anthony with some financial questions. Unfortunately, I know Anthony very well, so he's well suited to answer it. There's going to be no curveballs, Anthony. I'm just letting you know. In terms of gross margins, what's kind of the biggest indicator for you guys internally in terms of gross margin improvement? What variable changes where you see an upside to that?
That's a great question, Chris. Our business, as Jeff articulated, is we onboard a participant. There's a welcome kit that goes out, and then we basically go into this monthly engagement fee model that we have. And so that monthly engagement fee model is this recurring stream of activity that we're able to build for being active with our participants. So typically, in terms of gross margin, when we are in an onboarding phase, when we're bringing on new participants, the welcome kits go out. We really do a cost recovery on those kits, so we're not really looking to make a whole lot of money on those. And so that'll typically squeeze our margins in if there's a period of heavy onboarding. But then after that, we see our engagement fees kick in, and our margins on engagement fees have been improving over time. They've typically been 50 to 55%. And we're working towards increasing the capacity of that, as Jeff touched on, so that'll actually improve our margins. So we'll see upwards of 55, 60, 65% as time goes on. We're improving our technology. It'll allow for less human touch out of the gate, and it'll improve our longer term margins as we progress in our business. So those are the key things to look for, and that is really the operational leverage that we have in our organization is really that efficiency that we can pull out of our coaching process. And we expense 100% of our coaching team costs as cost of sales.
Have you disclosed to the street what normalized margins will look like a year from now?
Yeah, we've generally talked about those normalized margins looking like as we get more and more mature and have a larger pool of activity moving forward, we will see those margins approach the 60% and improve beyond those over time. We're right now sitting around that 50% level, but as folks have seen us in the past year, we've grown that margin throughout the course of the year. We continue to expect to grow that through the course of time.
Are most of your costs upfront when it comes to bringing on clientele, and how does that change the longer they remain clients?
That's a great question. Yes, upfront, there's that, of course, that welcome kit that goes out, and that does, represent a bit of a cost element up front. But as time goes on, all we're doing is executing on engagement with the participants, and so the cost structure does get less expensive as time goes on in the relationship.
Have you guys figured out what the cash flow break even is for the company, where sales have to be to ultimately get to that number?
Well, another great question, Chris. And we've mentioned in our disclosures that we are aiming right now as we speak in this calendar year to exit this year approaching that cash flow break even level. So in terms of our performance, it's within reach. It's within reach of what we see in our business today. It's within reach of what we see in our business within the next 9 months.
Understood. And then last question for you, Anthony, are there any clientele that are greater than 20% of your overall revenue?
Yes, today we do have a very rich relationship with one of our larger partners, which is JPMC, and so they would be one of the ones that are above that level. Yes.
Awesome, thank you. So I don't know, Jeff, if that was exactly 5 minutes, but I'm going to bring you back in. And now I'm going to look in the Q&A app and answer questions here. Okay. So Ennio, thank you so much for the question. Is this available only to employees of corporations or also to individual users?
Great question. Thus far, it's only available to employees of employees of our clients, and very shortly to individuals in the province of Newfoundland who are going to be covered by the provincial government. Just interestingly, Newtopia started as a direct-to-consumer company, and so we cut our teeth on direct-to-consumer orientation. We learned some valuable lessons, and it's led us to not be a direct-to-consumer company. The first is that individuals, by and large, don't invest their hard-earned dollars on preventing a disease that may or may not show up sometime in the future. So the idea of taking money out of your pocket to prevent diabetes or heart disease or stroke, which may happen, is not a typical consumer buying behavior. It doesn't have that immediate gratification of either aesthetic weight loss or something where it's I want to get into a photo or into a bathing suit. And so at that time when we were doing that, we were forced to become much more like an aesthetic weight loss company. And what it did is it totally shifted the focus, and it shifted our revenue model to where it's something much more short term as opposed to, let's call it the 3+ year long tail that we wanted today. And so we've got the experience having grown up as a direct-to-consumer company, but now the awareness that to really affect prevention, we need to identify an economic actor, the health insurer that I described, who's got their own financial motivation to make the investment on behalf of their member, that could be an employee or member, and then engage that member at that point of concern. When all those pieces come together, you've got this phenomenal formula that we've been able to, it's taken us some time to figure out, but long answer to how we arrived at the model we're at.
Jeff, we have a lot, these questions keep coming in. So what I want to do, because I want to spend a couple minutes with both you and Anthony personally, let's allocate about 6 minutes to these next 6 questions if we can.
Sure.
Christian asks, could you comment on the recent Morgan Health initiative? What are the implications for the healthcare space and Newtopia in general?
Now, I'm going to try to stick to your time frame here. We're awfully excited about it, is the answer. We saw with excitement the announcement yesterday from JP Chase, the creation of Morgan Health. We were delighted to work with JP Chase through their initial Haven partnership, and we're very fortunate to be probably one of the only trials completed under the Haven Vanguard to complete a 12-month trial, which we've now submitted to the JP Morgan team and to Berkshire and to Amazon. And are awaiting just sort of next steps there. And now with Morgan Health, which seems to be, again, as they state, a continuation of Haven, we're awfully excited about the opportunity for Morgan Health to become that innovation partner, to be able to share the outcomes that we've been able to deliver together. They are some of our best outcomes in the company's history, and so we're very excited to publicize them. And so we see tremendous opportunities through that collaboration.
And then this is a follow-up from Christian. What type of incentive plans exist at corporate clients for employees to join, if any?
I mean, by and large, I would say that most employers will have some form of incentive in place It will depend on what they're trying to incentivize. Some will oftentimes offer incentives to participate in a biometric test. Some will offer incentives to change results year over year as a result of that testing. Some will offer incentives for participation. As it happens, the work that we've now completed with JPMC offered a novel form of incentive, which is probably the most effective that we've seen to date. But again, every one of our clients offers some form of incentive on top or alongside of our platform.
This is from Sam. You mentioned sales season earlier in the presentation. Is there any seasonality in the business? And if so, can you please elaborate?
Yeah, I'd say there's so come back to B2B to E. So on the B2B side, I I wouldn't say there's so much seasonality as much as there's a defined sales season for employer benefit design and benefits. Usually commences in early March this year due to COVID. It actually began a little bit later in early April. And so we're about 6 weeks in into our cycle this year, where there'll be evaluation done, a consultation with the benefit consultants, and then some demonstrations and everything through to the end of August, September, oftentimes maybe early October, and then you flip into open enrollment, and then you flip into decisions being made, and usually we sell in 1 year for a decision to in commercialization to begin the next year. So our efforts now are largely going to be for 2022 in revenue enrollment. On the seasonality side, for the participant side, typically we see Q1 as a strong time period for organizations or partners to either roll out or re-up a Newtopia, and then we'll oftentimes see another strong push in the September timeframe. When it's sort of a back to work, back to school for a program of this kind. We tend to like to roll out not on a 1-1 basis, but we try to mimic the time frame that the employers are using to use those those risk identifiers. And so we like to roll out when individuals are learning about their risk, not on a specific calendar date. So that makes us a little bit more flexible in terms of our timing.
Morgan has a comment. Huge respect for hosting these guys. Is it possible that Morgan Health would invest in Newtopia, given the announcement's emphasis on CVS, preventative healthcare, and other employers?
Just unknown and too early to say. We did note and see the $250 million venture fund alongside Morgan Health, but at this point in time, just really not 100% sure what their mandate is going to be in terms of sizing of organizations or what their thesis is. But we certainly look forward to the potential of that conversation.
John asks, are there network effects or a critical mass number where adoption rates increase either at the company or geographical level? Great question, John.
Definitely networking effects in place. In fact, some of the rationale for the phasing that we do, either geographically or divisionally, is to build up a base of participant success and an influencer base. Because what we typically find is we want to start out with those early adopters within an organization. That Mary I described, maybe someone who likes to go first within the organization. We build up a base of Marys who then serve as the testimonial, and we try to enhance the virtual water cooler about the success that Mary's had, showcase Mary and her results to the rest of the organization. And so it seems to have a multiplication effect when we're able to show success amongst members of the community in later phases.
John, just out of respect for time, I'm going to take your next question and I'm going to put it offline, so we'll make sure we'll answer that after the call today. I thought this was phenomenal. What type of illnesses would exclude a patient from membership? Thank you for the question, AA.
So again, we're certainly not trying to exclude anyone from Newtopia. Again, our mandate is very much to focus on the prevent, reverse, and slow of chronic disease. And so within that 80%, our focus is very much on lifestyle-related chronic disease. And so this could be individuals who got one risk factor that could be elevated blood pressure, blood glucose, or waist circumference, all the way up to multiple who could have early diabetes, early hypertension, or early cardiovascular disease, or early mental and emotional health that we're looking to reverse and slow. yeah, I mean, the only today we don't we don't exclude anyone, but we also put up our hands and suggest that if there are individuals that have conditions that require more medical team or more medical training, we're going to just suggest that we're there for the lifestyle and the habit change side of it, and we're not trying to replace a medical team or a medical practitioner in and around any medical, surgical, or drug decisions.
Excellent. Jeff, we have time for one more question. It is from our lovely Linda. Linda's question was already answered. Do you have plans for employers? Is it just employers or for employees? Okay, so we answered that. Linda, thank you for the question. Okay, I've been with you guys for about an hour and 10 minutes total. Now it's my time to ask you, what personal habits do you guys have that have made you better individuals? That is my question to both you, Jeff, as well as Anthony. Is there something that you do daily that you have found that really helps you throughout the day?
That's a really great question, and yeah, I think through COVID, I've had the great benefit of being able to continue coming to our office. It used to be a couple hundred people here, and now it's just me. But I'm presenting this to you on a stand-up desk with a treadmill. I'm not walking on it right now because I've been told that I'm annoying to see my shoulder bouncing. But I would say that probably one of the best habit hacks that I've picked up is standing through the day, and now combining that with movement and walking. It's kept a certain degree of activity, and it's been able to really stave off the afternoon lull, the go for a sugary snack that I used to do when I wasn't doing that. And then the other is just I do maintain a pretty strict sleep habit as well. I used to be the CEO executive that thought I could occupy 4 to 5 hours, but it was burning me out and having some detrimental health consequences. And so I've actually swung toward a little bit more, and it's had a dramatic impact. So I'd say those two, just speaking really personally, have probably been some of the most effective habit changes that I pursue. Anthony, I don't know if it makes me a better individual, by the way, Chris, but I think it's making me healthier.
Jeff, I think that's awesome, by the way. I think you showcased to everyone here that fitness is a priority for you. And Anthony, before you answer, because I've known you for a long time and we're friends, let me see if I can predict what you're going to say. Transcendental meditation and kimchi on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Am I anywhere near ballpark, or am I way off?
Yeah, that food element is definitely in it for sure, and sushi is part of it. But yeah, the meditation not so much. I tell you, I actually need to get out and do some physical activity in terms of running or cycling, and I want to credit my kids for this pandemic, if anything else, has allowed me to connect with my kids a little bit more in terms of staying active and such. We're here just outside of Toronto, okay, and our province has been in a lockdown for almost 2 months. Like, we're at stay-at-home order. Tennis courts are locked up. Kids can't play basketball outside. This is the world we live in right now. But we're okay to go for nice walks, runs, or bike rides, and so that's really really helped us to kind of keep ourselves in order here. And I have to credit to some degree, this work at home for some reason, given us a little less travel and a little more time to actually take advantage of that. And in my case, I've been able to. And this is I would say the healthy habit that's really helped me get through good days, bad days, and everything in between. So that's been a big difference maker for me.
Awesome. And for me, you guys, it's drinking plenty of water. I try to drink a gallon a day. I don't really take any supplements outside of True Niagen and maybe some vitamin D. I think water gives me energy, just in case anyone's interested. Jeff, to close us off, where can people find out more information? Newtopia.com?
Yeah, I mean, so first, we really appreciate the opportunity, Chris, to Zoom with you and for helping us to amplify the story and the opportunity. But yeah, Newtopia.com. We've got a robust investor sites that we're constantly improving, and actually have some upgrades coming to shortly. We have a monthly investor newsletter And so if anyone's interested, there's a form on newtopia.com. Please input your information. We'd be delighted to add you, even if you're not invested yet, to our investor updates, just so you can hear and see what we're doing and how we're progressing. And you're fairly active on LinkedIn and Twitter as well.
For all those who submitted questions but were not answered, please email me at chris@ldmicro.com and I'll make sure that they do so. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure being with you guys and spending the last hour. I will see you on the other side. I know you have a busy day planned. So thank you again for your time and energy.
Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
Chris. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you.
Be well, you guys. Bye-bye.